Oh, there we go. That was so weird. On my screen, my video didn't play. But hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Welcome back. We're back with you guys for another show, and I'm joined by two, soon to be three, fingers crossed, wonderful people to discuss what wasn't such a wonderful evening, it's probably fair to say, yesterday. It started off quite nicely. It then became quite panicky, and all of our fears were suddenly realised as VAR-dy put the ball in the back of the net, and we're going to go into that and plenty more. But first off, I'm joined by my right-hand man, Drew. How you doing, fella?
The most wonderful person of us all, clearly. I'm doing okay.
Every single time you intro yourself, I get a comment after the video saying, "Oh, Drew's happy," or "I want some of what Drew's having." Is a common comment that we get these days in the chat.
You don't want anything of what I'm having.
So in the chat box, let's get some love for Drew. Let's support this man. There we go. I mean, Tiger T is one of our members. Is throwing in the Drew emojis. So if you're obviously in YouTube and the chat, you can see them. For some reason,
I mean, perfectly sums up my usual mood. So I think that's why he's doing it.
It's the raised the Rock Johnson eyebrow that you have in that picture that I love. That's what's great about it. And I'm also joined by a man who, it's fair to say, it's been a fair long while since I was on a podcast with him. It's Ellis. How you doing, pal?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, it's probably we were just catching up briefly before the show. It's probably been years, almost, probably more.
Yes.
But yeah, it's good to come back and have a little chat with you. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
I've had a bit of an ABW renaissance, it's fair to say. Some people obviously know from where I started on there, and that's where I met Ellis and Danny, of course, who came on last week. And we were having a chat, and I was like, you know what? Like, I haven't tuned in for so long, and then hearing you and Josh and the guys chat, I was like, I need to get some of these guys back on and have a chat. And so that's what we're doing here. And fingers crossed it's going to be great. So, Ellis, I'm going to start with you, mate. On a scale of 1 to 10, how disappointed were you that we didn't take away all 3 points yesterday?
Oh, that's a good question. Pretty disappointed. I could sort of see it coming. I think the way that we dropped the points there was probably the most disappointing thing. It was very frustrating in the way it sort of materialised. So I think I'd have to get a good, solid 8 out of 10. Not quite a 10 out of 10 for me, but yeah, I just think the way it happened. I think sometimes when a match goes that way, you can sort of kid yourself that we were a bit unlucky and that if things had perhaps gone a different way, we could have come out with all 3 points, which you can sort of try and soften the blow a bit. But it's frustrating nonetheless.
Yeah, it was. I kind of try and talk to myself out of the depressing thoughts of the two games, thinking that if you'd have offered me 4 points from Wolves and Leicester, I would have taken it. Probably would have actually bitten your arm off for 4 points.
Definitely.
Considering this season. So, yeah, it was, whilst disappointing that we couldn't take the win, the fact that we didn't lose is a big factor. Drew, when we look at that performance, though, all I see is this Arsenal side that seemingly can only play one half of a half of football. It's so strange. Up until the drinks break in the first half, we don't come alive. Second half of the first half, we seemingly come alive a little bit more. And in the second half, we absorb pressure, and then we'll have sort of a half within the half in that second half, if this is making any sense, where we'll come alive again. But the start and the end of the second half, we're just asleep, it seems, or we just absorb so much pressure. Is there any reasoning why that might be? Is it tiredness? Is it fatigue? What do you think it is?
I mean, at this point, I don't think it's tiredness or fatigue. I would assume that it's instructional. I think Arteta's trying to kind of get the players used to managing performances. Because I think we have a lot of players who kind of just want to go completely all out for 70 minutes and then they're completely burnt. And the fact that you have, a lot of different substitutes available to you now, you can kind of, if you change your approach, you can kind of almost weed out what your opponent's doing and then by extension make a tactical adjustments with the substitutions, especially with having 5 now. So I would say it's instructional. Obviously I could be dead wrong, but it's happening too many times now for it to be like a one-off thing. And I don't think at this point you can say that players aren't fit. I think all the players look quite fit, unless they're coming back from injury and trying to work themselves back into playing shape. I think everyone's okay on that front. So I think it's intentional. I don't know if we'll see it long-term necessarily. I think it's just kind of one of maybe the goals Arteta has maybe moving forward for us this season to kind of gauge where we're at on certain terms. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I just feel like maybe you have a little bit of a better balance with it. You don't ever want to invite too much pressure onto yourself, obviously. So, but yeah, I mean, I won't go into my level of frustration about yesterday. I think Ellis kind of covered that in Ellis's best way possible, like he always tends to do. So we don't really have to rehash it further. But yeah, so I think it's just an intentional thing, and I think positives will come out of it moving forward. But right now, I guess it's kind of frustrating because we have dropped a lot of points from winning positions, and I forget which side has done. I think maybe Bournemouth or the team that maybe have dropped more points from winning positions this season. I can't remember who it was, so don't quote me on that. But we're up there, certainly top 3 or 4 teams that have dropped points from winning spots. So that does have to change. I would agree with you.
Yeah, and obviously it's frustrating. I think that this run had to come to an end some point. Of our last 3 Premier League games, we'd won and we kept clean sheets in all 3 of them, and it seemed all too good to be true. But there were still some really encouraging signs, I thought, especially Ellis talking about like Saka once again playing in a position which isn't his most comfortable on that right-hand side as a left footer. I don't really consider Saka an inverted winger in any sense of the term. So to see him on that right side and get an assist with his right foot after sitting down Evans rather fantastically. I mean, I got a little bit carried away and tweeted out saying it was akin to Messi sitting down Boateng, which probably is a bit hyperbolic, but it just had that same sense about it. But speaking on the overall performance, like there were players in that team that we're going to come on to certain things in terms of red cards and decisions and things, but the one player that started and frustrated a lot of people was Alexander Lacazette. Now, I think he had a good performance in terms of his work ethic and the way that he chased the back line, pressured the opposition. He did exactly what Arteta wanted him to do, but it always will come back to those huge missed chances that just went begging that will leave an ultimate opinion in most people's minds. Is his position in the fan base recoverable at this point, do you think?
Of course it's recoverable. You've only got to look at the likes of Xhaka and the incident he had at Crystal Palace where he's booed off the pitch against Crystal Palace, sorry, not at Crystal Palace. And I think he's sort of restored a bit of the faith in, the fans restored some faith in him with his performances. And I think you could definitely get the same with Lacazette. Get a few more goals, turn your performances around, and I doubt the fans will be on his back again. If you're scoring goals for Arsenal, people aren't going to complain, are they? I think for me, out of it, like his general performance wasn't too bad. I'm trying to think of any times I was really critical of his performance, and I think the only miss that I was like, for fuck's sake, Lack, you really should have buried that, was probably that ball, the cross that Bellerin put in, and he headed it straight at Schmeichel. Yeah. And for me, that was probably the most frustrating of his chances. The chances he had, I thought he did well, considering I think he is still quite a way off sort of top form. But in terms of sort of his overall play and the way, like you mentioned, that Arteta potentially wants to play, I thought he's sort of done his job as Arteta. I think Arteta would be pleased with the role he played in the team, especially in sort of the first half and before he got substituted. I think he held on to the ball quite well. I think it's just frustrating. Like, obviously he got his away goal the other game, and God knows how many hours it took him to get that.
Away goal, as we're calling it now.
Well, yeah, without any fans, it's not necessarily a away goal, is it? But he sort of got rid of that sort of black mark against his name, and it's difficult. I think he's got a lot of competition with Eddie Nketiah. Obviously, we'll talk a bit more about him later. But yeah, out of the 2 or the 3 strikers we've got, he's definitely sort of lower in the pecking order for me. But I thought, considering how the game went, he did okay. But obviously, we could have, in the second half, we could have been potentially 3 goals up if it wasn't for a couple of saves that Schmeichel made, or shots that Lacazette hasn't taken as good as he could have taken. So yeah, for me, it's frustrating, but I don't think he's beyond saving his reputation with the fans. Like I said, he bangs a few more goals in, he gets back into form, and we won't really be talking about him again like we are at the moment. I hope he can do it, really.
Yeah, so do I. We are joined by Adam. How are you doing, mate? Are you well? Finishing a long shift at work?
Yeah, I finished it. It's been a long day, but it's fine. I'm here to talk about Arsenal, so that's going to brighten up my day.
Yeah, well, kind of. We're on the subject of Lacazette at the moment. And I asked Ellis if he thought that his sort of position in a reputation sense is recoverable, and Ellis thinks that it is. It's obviously just frustrating to see these chances that he's missing. Where's your head at regarding the Frenchman? Are you more on the side of we need to move him on this summer now, and the performances this season haven't been good enough? Or do you think, as Ellis does, that this sort of situation is recoverable?
Oh, God. What a question to get me started on.
You're at the big end, fella.
It's difficult because the Aubameyang situation kind of, for me, messes up the Lacazette situation in that we could lose Aubameyang, but then we've got a striker in Lacazette who hasn't quite hit the heights that we thought he might, but then is still young enough to regain some form, is still good enough if he does get to that form to help us, maybe not challenge for the title, but challenge for the top four. So yeah, it's difficult. Plus, his value currently seems to be floating around 40 to 50 million. So all of that, I think, just makes the situation really, really difficult to assess. And so I think it ultimately comes down to a personal preference, and I guess maybe what Arteta wants to do with the team generally, because if we were to keep both, I don't see Aubameyang playing through the middle, although he's getting lots of goals off the left. If we get rid of Lacazette, I've kind of got question marks about whether Aubameyang can do what Lacazette does when he does play well. So it's a real mixed bag. I really don't know. I really don't know. If it were up to me, I'd probably try and beg Aubameyang to go on a 2-year contract max and sell Lacazette if his valuation is actually between 40 and 50 as it's been reported. But yeah, other than that, I'm completely stumped because it's just a pile of mess, really.
Yeah, the valuation of Lacazette's an interesting one because obviously we signed him for just over 50 a few years back. And I don't know if anyone's had a chance to check it out yet, but if you haven't, please do. I had a chat with Graham Hunter all about Thomas Partey today, and it was a fantastic interview, really good, insightful stuff. So please do go and check it out. But one of the things that he mentioned was that if Lacazette, I asked him basically if Lacazette was a feasible trade option for Partey. Now, if you're looking at the Partey situation, we're looking at a €50 million release clause, which equates to around 40 to 45 million pounds, which is the same amount of money that a lot of people are rating Lacazette. Now, I don't think, firstly, in this market with the COVID situation, you're going to get 40 to 45 million pounds for Lacazette. And then secondly, Graham mentioned how he would be utterly shocked if Atleti went for a deal where they got no money whatsoever, because he said that Atleti are in a situation where they need money, they need financial backing to do some business this summer that they need to, and just to sort of recover the situation. They took loans out for the João Felix deal, even though they got the money in from the Griezmann. That's the situation that they're in. So that it would be extremely surprising to see a straight swap between Lacazette and Partey, and some money would probably be needed to exchange hands. Drew, just sort of rounding off this Lacazette situation before we go into the chat box and get some of your reaction to it, guys. Where's your head at? Are you on the fence still? Are you waiting to the end of the season before you make a judgment? How are you feeling on Lacazette?
No, I'd rather keep him. I mean, I know people lament the amount of money we spent and that we're not getting the goal return from him that maybe would have expected, but it's clear that he's the only one who can do the job that Arteta wants right now from a center forward. Although, obviously he's best in the middle as well, but he's not at his best when asked to drop deeper and get involved and build play and even press further back, like midfield. That's just not where he excels, which is why he's fine on the left, because he gets cover from both Xhaka and whoever the left back is on the day, and he can run into space. So you're freeing him up to do what he does best, and that's run the channels, really. That's kind of what you want from him. So I'd rather keep him. And as much as I like watching Nketiah develop, he's not ready yet. He can't lead the line for Arsenal Football Club for a whole season. There's no way. He's just not consistent enough yet. His lethality just still isn't there. He needs another year or two before we can really expect him to do that kind of job. If he was maybe of the level of some other players you've seen at the same age bracket, I'd be less worried. But he's just not there yet for me. So I'd rather keep Laka and then you kind of hope he hits goal scoring form. And it's interesting because even though he's not scoring, you still see him get into those same positions where if he was confident in form, he would be scoring goals. It's not that he's playing poorly. He still does everything he needs to do off the ball. When he's on the ball and when he's involved in build-up play and in the final third, he's still getting into the areas you want to see him get into. So it's clearly, this is like, for me, and like as I said before, it's 100% confidence. And there's no position in football more affected by confidence than keeper and striker, period. If you're with it mentally, you're on top gear, and if you're not, you make silly mistakes. You saw the same from Karius at Liverpool, where he wasn't confident, and though he was a very good shot stopper, he made constant mistakes because mentally he wasn't there. But he was very, very good in the Bundesliga before he came to Liverpool. So confidence is everything in certain key areas. So I would rather keep him, and I know people want the money. And the thing is, if we were to send Laka to Atleti and then get part-time return, it doesn't solve Madrid's financial problem. They're not getting any financial return to solve the debt problem like you just discussed with Graham before. So it's tricky. I mean, I'd rather stick it out and hopefully we get Europe next year. And we're going to need depth anyway. And if we sell Laka or let him go, are we really going to bring in another striker through the market? Probably not. So then we're down one on the position. Balogun is probably leaving as well. So it's a tough spot, like Adam said. But I'd rather stick it out and hope that he hits good on his confidence and hits form moving into next season. So.
Let's throw into the chat box then and see what some of you guys are saying. Gary Hardy, one of our members, says that he thinks that Laka needs to go now. The better that he goes sooner, the better fee that we could possibly get. Scrolling down, seeing some more. Rydog mentions that when Laka comes off, neither of Eddie or Alba can do the hold-up play that Laka can, and so they'll have to spend money on a replacement that can do that. And actually, it raises a good point, because I think that Arteta ideally wants a striker that can hold the ball up. With the amount of pace he's got from wide areas running in behind, he doesn't need the forward player, the central striker, to do that. He needs them to be what, ironically, Olivier Giroud used to do really well, where he would hold the ball up and then bring in the wide players, which is something that I always go back to and think, if we just kept him for a bit longer, the system might have been able to work a bit better. But we move on from that. Christopher Fung reckons that he doesn't think that Atletico are going to match Laka's wages, which is a completely fair point as well. Pam Rasta 1 says that Laka and Alba are the ideal combination for Arsenal. If one goes, then the other's end product will drop tremendously. We won't get a proper replacement for either, knowing what we like as Arsenal and how things go. And then finishing off with Carl Halberg, another one of our members, he says, I don't understand the skepticism behind Alba being able to do Lacazette's job. He's the best striker in the league, in my opinion. True, he hasn't got the same skill set, but it's on the team to adapt. Now, I kind of disagree with that as well.
100% disagree.
If you look at Alba, he's very slender. He's not the physical brute that Lacazette is, and he's not the type to do hold-up play. He's the one that runs in behind. He's the one that will be fed the ball in wide areas or through the middle to run onto. And I really kind of struggle to see that. It's all well and good saying that a striker is the best in the league, and I'm with you in that sense. He certainly is up there as the best striker in the league for me, even though he's not even playing that position. But for me, you need someone that can hold the ball up a lot better than Alba to play that central role, especially in this Arteta system. Let's move on to some even more controversial things that happened yesterday. Ellis, the red card.
Oh, God.
This has divided so many people, me included. Now, I held my hands up immediately and said, I mean, when it happened in real time, my reaction was, I knew you could see what was coming. I feel it's a red card. My reasoning is, before I let you guys go for Golden Ellis first, that this whole he goes for the ball, it doesn't matter if he doesn't get the ball, because he endangers the opposition player. And if you read by the rule book, as soon as you endanger an opposition player, it's serious foul play. He makes contact with his studs. For me, it's trademark. So where's your head on it?
I can see the point of view. I can see your point of view. I get that. And I get that, if you're going by the rule book, you're probably right. That is a red card. But for me, it's a dark yellow, an orange card for me.
All right, Ellis is going to rewrite FIFA rules here and now.
laying down the laws. I start my own league. I'm going to get my own referees, and they can all be biased towards Arsenal. We'll have a lovely
angry
time.
when he joined this. You're making it even worse.
It's going to give me a red card in a bit. But yeah, like, I think it's clumsy. Yes, he's made contact and he's hurt him. But for me, my issue with that red card is the consistency of the referees in our league. It is, we will see another challenge like that happen probably. I don't even know this game's on tonight. Any games on tonight, the next games, lots of fixtures, we'll see a sort of challenge like that, and I guarantee you another team won't get it.
Tarkovsky already did it earlier. He went studs up into the knee, and it didn't even get VAR.
Did it even get reviewed by VAR?
No reviewed.
And my issue is with it, going back to the old days before VAR, where there'd be a dangerous tackle, and if a referee gives a yellow for it, the referees wouldn't even review it, and they say, and they're not going to review it, even if like the team would say, well, we want to just have a look at that, we think it should be a subsequent like suspension. They'll go, no, the referee's seen it and he's given a yellow card. He's judged that foul as a yellow card. He'd already given that as a yellow. They then show the replay multiple times, probably double figures times, over and over and over and over and again. And I think if you're going to show a replay that many times, is it really clear and obvious? There are a couple of angles where you look at it and you go, oh, fuck yeah, he's probably hurt him there. That probably should be a red card. But then there's also multiple angles that they didn't look at that show it not being bad. Yes, it is a foul. Yes, he should have been booked. But for me, with my Arsenal bias glasses on, I wouldn't have sent him off. I think there'll be a lot of centre forwards that would probably say, yeah, that's a bit harsh. Non-biased centre forwards from other clubs would probably think, yeah, I'd probably put like a challenge for that. Yeah, he's just come onto the game. He's not really quite up to speed. He's young. He's passionate. He just wants to win the ball. I don't think there's any maliciousness in there. And obviously, we'll come to talk about it. There's another incident in this game where someone has been malicious and it hasn't even been fucking checked. Like, that is my issue. My issue isn't necessarily with the opinion or whether it's a red or not. My issue is the fact with that there's no consistency with our referees, there's no consistency with VAR reviews, and it's just frustrating, especially when you consider that, again, probably my biasness, but I don't think that's a word, but probably my bias. But it seems that, and again, it's probably because we're more shit, so we are affected more by bad referee decisions than the higher up clubs. But for me, it feels like we've been on like quite a lot of these, not necessarily wrong decisions, but decisions that go in against us that don't go the same way against other teams, and it is mega frustrating for me. But I'll let Drew talk now as I've rewritten for Premier League.
That's fine. I agree in this. I feel like there should be a card between yellow and red, because there is such I feel like Drew is going to burst. I feel like Drew is going to burst.
I adore Ellis. You see what he does when he comes on? This nonsense. Talking about orange.
Drew, you're close to an orange card now, mate. All right.
For me, I put this plainly on Twitter and in however many group chats. If the roles are reversed and that's our player getting studded, we're not having this justification as to why it should or shouldn't have been a red. We're screaming it's a red. There's no two ways about it. For me, that's it. If, like you said, letter of the law, if you come in, it doesn't matter what your intent is, because the ref's not there to judge you on what maybe your intent was, what was going through your head at the time. The fact is he came studs up into the knee, it's a red. And whether he tried to get the ball or not is completely irrelevant. And we saw the same thing. But I do agree that I get frustrated at the lack of consistency in the refereeing. And Arsene Wenger said it before he even left the club, that, and I remember the quote, he said there's only two leagues in the world that have professional referees. It's England and it's Italy. But there will be no English referees going to the World Cup or the Euro, whichever one it was. And there's a reason for that. The standard has been poor for years. I think we can all agree that the standard's been poor for years. But that still doesn't change the fact that, like, by the letter of the law, I think the right call was made. But if you look at Tarkovsky's incident earlier today, that was clearly the wrong call on a tackle or a studs up incident where it was eerily similar to what happened with Nketiah. So
it's not an Arsenal player, but if it is an Arsenal player, then it's
no. I agree that there's so many instances where we can say, how did this happen to us, but yet somehow it doesn't happen to somebody else. And I agree with you there, Ellis, for sure. And we can hug it out later. Don't worry. But so yeah, there should be consistency. But for me, the right call was made, and I had no issues with it. Tom can vouch for that. In the TGT WhatsApp group, I agreed. that's a red all day long. And I don't think we can really say otherwise, but we can lament the fact that if it happened to us, we probably wouldn't have gotten the same decision our way. And I think that's what the fans are reacting at. I don't think they're reacting about the fact that it was a red. I think they're reacting about the fact that it would have been a red if it was us. Those are two very different arguments for me. So I think that's where the issue is.
Adam,
orange card it is.
Orange card it is.
Yeah, man, I'm all for the orange card. I love that. Listen, I think if we're doing Arsenal bias, I'm the guy. Let's talk about how dirty Jamie Vardy is and the fact that he kicked Mustafi in the face on purpose and left 2 boot marks in his flipping face or stud marks. I think, yeah, I don't know how Jamie Vardy. The thing is, that one I completely overlooked it. I looked at it and I said, it's an accident. He didn't mean it. Mustafi, it's unfortunate. It makes him look like a better defender because he's got the scars to show it that he's been in battle. So I thought, yeah, fine. And then I see it happen to Nketiah. I'm reminded of what Jamie Vardy did, and I said, wait, how come he can get away with that? Because he's still endangering an opponent, and yes, he didn't have intent. And Nketiah, to me, it's the same thing. He endangered an opponent, and to me, there was no intent. So I don't really understand how one is allowed, one isn't. I didn't know that there was a thing against Arsenal. There was a bias against Arsenal. Someone told me that the only time the ref has gone to the monitor this season was when Aubameyang did it against Crystal Palace, which is, again, a bit weird to me. But yeah, I don't think it was enough. I think the ref needs to use a bit of common sense. He's initially seen it, given a yellow card, and said it's fine. And yeah.
Sorry, Adam. Let me pitch this to you. That the angle where me and Drew are at is that I agree with you in common sense. I don't think it's enough for what I would consider a red card. Yeah. What me and Drew are saying is that the letter of the law says that if you endanger an opponent, which the challenge I feel does, it's therefore a red card in the league. So do you see where we come? I don't disagree with you in the sense I personally wouldn't think it's enough for a red, but the letter of the law means that it is. Does that make sense?
I get that. I completely get it. My only thing is, surely then apply the same consistency to Vardy. That's all. And if Vardy, we can overlook Vardy and say that wasn't a red because I don't think it was, then I think we can overlook Nketiah's one and say that wasn't a red too. But of course, I'm not a professional referee, so you know.
Does getting a boot to head though, like going by the letter of law, endanger the player? He's got kicked in the head.
Yeah, of course it does.
So, and this is exactly what I was going to come on to.
Of it.
I think there's way too much liberalism in interpreting the letter of the law. Each ref has their own interpretation. That's the problem, because we can all agree that the debate around whether Vardy intentionally or not tried to kick Mustafi in the face. The fact is, he kicked Mustafi in the face. So by the letter of the law, it should have been a red card. But the ref would have sat there and said, "Well, it clearly wasn't intentional. He was falling down. I can't send him off for that." That's the problem. The problem is it's the translation on a personal level of how you're looking at the letter of the law and what you're going to do with it. That for me, it shouldn't be. You shouldn't have circumstantial evidence. It shouldn't be, how I want to see it might be different from yours. It should be, this is what it is. This is how it needs to be officiated. Case closed. So in this instance, either both those are sendings off, or both of those are yellow card offenses or orange card offenses, just for you, Ellis. Depending on,
does not like the orange card.
No, and you shouldn't. But I think that's where we could probably all find common ground. It's got to be one or the other, and it has to be enforced. And there's no two ways about what the debate should be. You know what I mean? So I think that's how simple it has to be. And if it's never going to come to that, then we're going to have instances like this constantly every year upon year. Literally 24 hours later, we saw the same thing happen, and it wasn't even deemed worthy of going to VAR. So that kind of gives you all your answers, really.
Love that. It gives you all your answers. What more can you ask?
But even VAR, like you say, the more you have the opinion in there is what gives the inconsistency. If anything, if you're going to have opinion, then you're going to have disagreements. Whereas VAR is run with opinions. They decide whether they decide if that's a reviewable
Yeah.
VAR or not, or they decide that actually referee need to check that. And then it goes back to the referee to go pitch side, look at the screen, and then use his opinion to judge whether that's sending off or not. So
And the
there's
thing is,
probably too much opinion involved, isn't there?
like instances in the game as well. Like there's no consistency in the rule book because the handball rule, when it leads to a goal, it's one rule and that's it. If it touches your hand and then it leads to a goal, it's considered handball. So why that same level of like just cut and dry does not apply to this? It makes no. I don't get why they don't have that consistency. Well, I do get it. It's just so interpretation can happen in the game, and a lot of it's funny because before VAR happened, one of the biggest criticisms of VAR was when it was coming in that we won't have anything to talk about. Is that everything will be made and there'll be nothing to talk about? Well, hey, arguably we talk more about the decisions made through VAR than we ever did before VAR came in. So it's a really strange one because beforehand we were just like, well, the referee was wrong. But now we're like, not only was the ref wrong, but the 3 officials in the booth was wrong and they managed to watch it with replays and we're still getting it wrong. But yeah, for me, it was a red card. For Ellis, it was an orange card. I think Adam's on the same wavelength, and for Drew, it was a red card as well. So we've got mixed views, but I think we've covered it pretty well. There's one more key element that I want to look at to this game before we move on to North London derby chat, is the Leicester goal. Now, the Leicester goal has divided so many fans again, and I put up a minute. I deleted it now because it was just ridiculous. the responses I was getting to this video that I put up basically explaining in my head. I'll do a very brief version. Cross comes in. I believe it's Justin, but tell me if I'm wrong. I believe it's Justin that puts the ball into the box. Both of Jose Perez and VAR-dy are onside clearly when the cross is played in. So do we all agree with that? Are you all in agreement that Perez and VAR-dy were onside at the initial cross? Anyone want to disagree with that?
There is an angle with a line that makes it look like they're onside.
No, okay, right. We'll move
There's
on.
a blue line from him, and I can't remember if it's VAR-dy or Perez or whoever the two.
It's the upper half of his body that looks off. And when you think about when you put the line across, the upper half of the body is not in line with the lower half because of perspective. So it's
but I'm an Arsenal fan, so it's offside.
So wait, listen. I've got the solution. The solution is clearly an orange line. I don't see what the problem is.
Like that. So there's VAR-dy offside, and there's Perez offside. Goal disallowed.
Anyway, if we're all in agreement that it was onside, the ball comes in. Now, the biggest thing about this is whether Perez touches the ball. If Perez doesn't touch the ball, it doesn't matter if he goes for it. It doesn't matter if he interferes with play, because the ball that's gone across, if he doesn't touch it, it means VAR-dy's onside, because the initial cross VAR-dy is onside for. So it would need Perez to touch it to make VAR-dy active in the second phase. But there is no second phase for me because I don't think Perez touches it. So it's all within that first phase. Now, this is where the disagreement comes, because if Perez does touch it, in that split second, VAR-dy would be offside. Now, is there anyone on here that thinks that Perez touched the ball, other than Ellis, because he will say that he did because of Arsenal bias? But Adam, Drew,
I don't think he did. I think.
Okay. I don't think he did.
Yeah.
Progress. Yeah, no, I actually think he did. I mean, he came as close as you possibly could have to getting contact, but I don't think he actually did. And with that said, I think the goal should have stood. It's super unfortunate, but I guess kind of moving away from it, we find yet again, this is kind of a theme I don't want to return to personally, but we always will find ourselves talking about referee decisions if they're right or wrong because we didn't put the match away when we could have. That's the bigger thing. And I think that's where
that's not the fun bit.
It's not the fun bit, but it's the true bit. That's what matters.
Okay.
No, listen, you've come to the wrong shop if you don't want me to be reasonable. So I don't know what you're on about, but no, I think that's just to me that's the bigger talking point of the day is, and I'm not even going to single out players because I think there's a host of them who are responsible. But if you put that match away 2-0 up, that goal decision becomes inconsequential. Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of the fans would probably say their biggest gripe on that is, we let one slip away. That's a huge 3 points we could have had. It's not that we played poorly. It was just we didn't take our chances when they came. And now we're talking about orange lines and orange cards and bending offsides of our lines on replay because of Ellis again. So that's what we have to do. But yeah, there you go.
Adam.
Yes. For me, this one, I'd be clutching at the smallest of straw to say that it was offside. But really and truly, I don't think the ball deviated enough for us to say that Perez touched it definitively. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, as much as I'd love to say that there's a controversy here and that he was definitely offside, the calls were really, really tight. And so I'm not going to begrudge the VAR official for, as Drew said, for a game that we should have put to bed from the very beginning. We had enough chances. There were passes that came a little second too slowly. Wow, I can't wait for you to read that super chat, man. No, I don't think it was offside at all.
Yeah. Speaking of that super chat, Arian, I really appreciate it, but I don't speak that language, and there's a chance that you could have written something really controversial, and I, for that reason, cannot read it out. If you want to translate it and write your own comment,
I'm also fairly positive that's Farsi because Arian is Iranian. That should be Farsi.
Yeah.
Not Arabic.
I understand it.
Just like Arian, the next comment you type, Arian, I will throw up on the video, no problem. I don't know what you've written. I'm sorry.
He
Ellis.
said it's offside, and I love orange cards. Definitely what he said. Put it in Translate it, believe me.
Oh, dear me. Okay.
Going back to the onside, I've seen a bit of debates about this on Twitter, and I think it might have been comments in your post when you put your little clip on there. And I think that the issue with VAR, if it's clear and obvious, that isn't clear and obvious that he touches it. There's no way you can't tell. There's people sat there slowing it down, debating the laws of physics to try and work out if Perez has touched it. If you're going into that depth, then you can't really say that he's touched it. And for me, yeah, you're right. Take my Arsenal hat off. They're both onside. He doesn't touch it. Even if he doesn't touch it, he doesn't touch it enough clearly for VAR to go, yeah, that's the wrong decision. End of, unfortunately. And again, like Drew said, he's made it perfectly clear. If we put that game to bed, then we're not sat here moaning about them. As frustrating as it is, we're not moaning about the officials because their mistakes aren't going to cost us games because we're better than that. But unfortunately, at the moment, we're not.
No, it comes down to that. If Arsenal take their chances, and also if VAR-dy was given the official punishment as well that we've talked about, that he should have been sent off according to the letter of the law, then that would have led to him not having. I mean, it's ironic, isn't it? Because did that happen before the Eddie Nketiah red card? I think it might have done. Yeah. And so it would have put them in the completely our situation that we were faced with, our outlet up top basically being taken away. So yeah, it's a big shame. Arian said that he thought that you were going to translate it, Ellis. So I'm going to leave that to you.
I did, Arian. That was perfect translation. You can't convince me otherwise.
So let's now leave behind the controversy of Leicester and look ahead to what is easily now the biggest game of our season behind the FA Cup fixtures. So the North London derby, Spurs are, it's almost pointless talking about form in derbies, but I'm going to very briefly. Spurs have done pretty terribly, it's fair to say, since coming back from Project Restart, I feel. However, they did get a win against Everton, but if you watch that game, Everton were dreadful. One of the worst performances of a Premier League side I've seen this season. They didn't offer anything, and the goal itself was, of course, an own goal too. So we're seemingly in two different ends of a spectrum of how clubs have come back from the Project Restart. Adam, I'm going to come to you first, mate. How are you feeling ahead of this derby? Are you confident? Are you nervous? Are you where are we at?
Tom, confidence would be so premature because I know for a fact Arsenal being Arsenal, I'm beating in four now, I think it is. Tottenham have been playing dreadful football. Mourinho or Maureen's looking trash. None of their players. I've seen Tottenham fans in a turmoil, in a tizzy on Twitter. And yet it comes into the North London derby and we probably get beaten like 4-2, something like that. So while I want to be confident, and form and history says I should be confident, I'm really not. We should beat them on paper. We should absolutely annihilate them. I think initially, right from the very beginning, Mourinho and Tottenham is not a good fit. Has never been. I think Mourinho was on his last legs at Manchester United, and I think if we can accept that players decline, we need to accept that managers can decline, and Mourinho is right at the end of his shelf life. So yeah, while we should beat them, I do think that he has a particular hatred for Arsenal, and he'll G his players up that little bit more just to try and go out there and put on a performance. So yeah, I reckon, yeah, it'll probably be a close win, maybe a nice 2-1 for Arsenal.
After all that, you're still going for a win.
Yeah, of course, not to.
Spent about 2 minutes talking yourself out of a win to predict a win. It's great. Fantastic stuff. Ellis, the man up front always scores against us. It doesn't matter what we do. I say that doesn't matter what we do. In fact, we often help him out with a penalty or two in trying to score against us. But as Adam said, their form is bad. They're not clicking under Mourinho. I thought it was a horrific assignment. Or appointment, or whatever word you want to use to describe it. It just doesn't fit for me. I think they went from a really sort of dynamic, different manager in Pochettino, which was threatening to me, but Maureen just doesn't affect me in the same way. There's still the same hatred for that man more than almost anyone on the planet in the footballing world. It just doesn't threaten me, Maureen. How are you feeling about the Spurs situation?
I completely get where Adam's coming from. Like, it's a North London derby. Form goes out of the window. They might be playing trash at the moment. We might be sort of, even with the draw, sort of on an upward trajectory, but it goes out the window. They're going to be up for it. There's the fucking Mourinho getting a bit upset about our social media having a little dig. Like, he'll probably use that to try and drive his players to get him on. And I think we'll have a difficult game. And Mourinho, again, I hate him just as much as you. I really detest that guy. I can't believe there are Arsenal fans that are actually, before he signed for Spurs, wanted him to sign for us. Fuck that. However bad you think we were with Emery, it would have only got fucking worse with him here, and with no money to try and make it better, we'd be up shit creek. But I think he must be.
Let's just focus on that for a second, because I love that you brought it up. Why would people want him as our manager? It makes no sense. Why?
He's like the most anti-Arsenal. If you got a group of Arsenal fans together and say, how do you want Arsenal to play? How do you imagine Arsenal to be as a club? Mourinho just doesn't fit that bill at all. I think some people are just so desperate for Arsenal to do something well, and like it or not, he had a proven track record. Even with Man United, he won trophies. So I think they're probably clutching at straws, hoping he could do something with us. But I'd rather not sell my soul to the devil just to win a potential trophy. And I don't think he even would have won a trophy. So I think you look at Spurs now and how they're going with the team they've got. Like, people in the chat box are going to hate me here, but they've arguably got a better squad on paper than we have. And look at how he's making them play. He even had them extra training sessions in the park during Corona lockdown, and they're still playing fucking shit. So
I mean, the same people wanted Ancelotti at the club as well. Don't even get me started on that one. So
no, just go there.
Save that for another day, I think.
Adam was going to disagree there. Did you want?
No, I'm wondering. Did you not rate Ancelotti or?
No.
But hold on. It's not about not rating, because I think that we can all agree that he's done some unbelievable.
Yeah, you can rate the balance of his career, but as you just said as well, you come to the end of your shelf life, and it doesn't matter about a manager's pedigree. It matters if the manager fits what the club is trying to do, and Ancelotti would literally not fit anything we're trying to achieve here. Also, he's never spent more than 2 years at a club since he left Milan in the first place. So, by extension, we would want a long-term appointment anyway. He doesn't even fit that, let alone how he wants to play football. So, congrats to him, but no, I'll pass as well. Same thing. Same kind of thing.
The only sympathy I have is that Arsenal are in such a horrible position with Emery. Like, we were so down. Drew knows this from long time listening and working with me on the show, is that I used to be so dead set against Diogo Simeone becoming Arsenal fan, and Drew will vouch for me there. I used to be so against the idea of Simeone coming. And don't get me wrong, I love Atletico Madrid. I love watching them play. I love their squad. I love what they're about. I love the tenacity, the passion. I love players like Diogo Godin. I love Diego Costa there. I love all of what they're about. But I hated the thought of seeing that in an Arsenal. I like watching Atleti because it's not my club. So I love what they're about and what they do to teams. I just don't like that sense and affiliation with Arsenal. But even during the Emery period, there were times on this show where I was like, Diogo Simeone might not be that bad. So I think that there is a point in time where people get so down with what the situation is that they will say things that they will later regret saying, like I did with Simeone. So I think that is probably the same situation. Drew, I'm interested to point out something that Ellis said about the squads, is that on paper, Spurs' squad is impressive. And I hate using those words because Son is a really good player. I mean, I don't like his attitude. I don't like that sense of his game, especially what happened with Lloris at half-time in that game. And Ndombele has been treated horrifically from what was an amazing midfielder at Lyon to what has he become now at Spurs. Lo Celso, I loved what he was about when he was at PSG. I loved what he'd done. I loved the move to Real Betis in itself. I thought that was great. And what he did there was fantastic. But when he moved to Spurs, it was just frustrating. And then you've got your best man in the world, Steven Bergwijn, who you were so angry leaving PSV. I mean, you can't knock Spurs' business. They know how to sign a decent player. But what they do with them when they arrive is where we can take some comfort that we've got a decent chance on Sunday.
I mean, I would agree, and I think if you look what happened in the Everton match, and you can clearly tell that full Mourinho has taken hold of the club, and that's to our benefit. They're disjointed, and there's no better time to kind of try to play them at the moment. I agree with you guys. He might get them or try to get them up for it because he has this obsession with trying to get one over on Arsenal, even though Arsene Wenger's no longer at the club. He'll be motivated personally, but can he motivate that squad? Will they want to actually put in a performance to satisfy the manager? I really don't think so. In fact, just the body language you see, they just don't seem comfortable. This is the first time in the last couple of seasons where I'm not worried about playing Spurs as much as I would be if they were under Pochettino, because you knew Pochettino had a plan. You knew they were going to play progressive football. You knew they were going to do whatever it took to get Harry Kane on the score sheet. I don't think I really see that in Spurs at the moment. You just said it. And Ndombele was one of the best signings of any signing in the summer window. And he's already come out publicly and said, I don't want to be here. That's a really good sign. And so he might not even play. Dyer suspended. We can make as many jokes about that as we want to. Well, that's actually good or bad. It's probably bad because I'd rather him play, to be honest with you. But I do also agree with Ellis that pound for pound, Spurs' team is if all the good players were fit and in form and willing to actually put in the performance, I think they actually have the better team on paper. They definitely have the better center back core. They have, I think their midfield balance is a little bit better. If you put Ndombele with Lo Celso, I would be afraid of that a little bit more than Xhaka and Ceballos at the moment. Harry Kane knows how to finish, and Bergwijn and Son on the wings is, that's how you get yourself into trouble.
When you really think it's a joke.
They have and that's when you look at it. They've done so well with their business, spending low for value and increasing that value. It's impressive, and I hate to admit that none of us hate giving Spurs any ounce of credit on this planet, but you kind of have to when you want to be honest with yourselves. But I do think they're actually there for the taking. Their form has been pretty piss poor, and I think they've only won 2 of their last 6. They're sitting, depending on, they play tomorrow, right? So if they win tomorrow, they're actually a point ahead of us in the table. So extra motivation for us as well. So hopefully we'll win. I'll go with a 2-0 clean sheet. I mean, he's going to get another clean sheet. That'd be great. For the first time, I've been positive in both on and Derby. So let's hope I'm not proving wrong.
Not even on to predictions yet, and that was brave. Fair play. I will come back to see if you change your mind after some of the questions have come in. Speaking of which, we've got about 10 to 15 minutes left of the show, guys. So if you have got a question that you would like to ask the guys, please make sure you throw it into the chat box. Now, Adam, there was a question that came in from Joe Kim, which says, what if we finish below 10th? Will the fans still say they trust the process? And would they trust Arteta?
Mate, I was saying bloody trust Emery for 2 years, even after Baku. So yeah, I'm definitely going to trust Arteta, even if we finish 10th, because I can see improvement. And I think this is probably the most unified I've seen the Arsenal fan base in a long time. I can't say how long exactly, but in a very long time. And I think because we can see the building blocks in place for what Arteta is doing, that buys him time, that gives him credit in the bank for him to, I don't know, experiment, do a little bit more, take the riskier decisions like put out Guendouzi to train by himself. I think we believe in his methods, believe in what he's trying to do. So yeah, I do think even if we finish 10th, people will say trust the process.
Ellis, question from, where has it gone? I just saw it. Avon Tellington, he says, without Eddie, who are our front three going to be in the North London derby?
Laka, Xhaka, and Alba, probably, I imagine. That's what we started with, didn't we, at the start of this game?
So you don't think Pepe comes back in?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Pepe. Pepe could potentially come in, but then do you put Alba central? I don't know. For me, I don't think... I think I'll stick with the front three.
Let me throw this at you, okay?
Right, go on then.
Kolasinac, I feel, has been indifferent in that left centre-back role. I think there's been good parts to his game and there's been bad parts, mainly being his distribution. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong, I've loved Kieran Tierney in the left wing-back role. His crossing's been great. But we also did quite well with Kieran Tierney in the left centre-back role and Saka as the left wing-back, and then that opens up the possibility of going Alba, Laka, Pepe as the front three. So how would you feel about that scenario?
Yeah, I'd give that. I quite like Tierney's ability to get a cross in, though, and the way he gets forward. I think out of all the sort of left-sided players we've got, I think he's the best at crossing the ball, the deliveries into the box. So I think putting him at left centre-back, you sort of lose that. But then, like you say, with Saka, he's just on form at the moment, and I think his preferred position is down that left-hand side rather than the right, even though we saw he can do it on the right with the piece of skill and the ball that he put in for Alba, and obviously the goal that he got in the previous game. So he can play on the right if you need him to. I think it depends on what we want, really. It depends on how we're going to play. I think with Pepe throwing him back in now, I think I'm not sure they put him straight. I know he's been training, he's just at the birth of his child, but I think potentially he'd probably be more of an impact sub to come off the bench. So I'd probably stick with the front three that I mentioned rather than throwing Pepe on from the start. But I'll probably be wrong because I'm not a manager.
You are an Arsenal fan that's biased. So
I am a Arsenal fan.
From today. Drew, Vinny Eagle, another one of our members, says, would you sell Bellerin with Aaron's availability? Do you think we would get a better option, or would we be a better option? Rather?
No, I really wouldn't sell him. I mean, if he came out and said he wanted to leave, then yeah, I wouldn't want him to stay. But I don't think there's any reason for us to try to push him out of the club either. You can't give me any justifiable reason for that. You know, it's not even just the fact that I feel like
how about people being important, get a lot of money for him to.
I don't think he's playing poorly. I think defensively he's been just fine. I think you can argue that he's not giving you what you want from a modern fullback in terms of what he offers going forward, but defensively he's been just fine. And I think my opinion would maybe change if during next season we see similar, then it's showing that either he's not getting past his ACL or that this is all that he's going to be able to be after he recovers from his ACL. That's a completely different discussion, but that Drew's still out with that. And I feel like he just offers so much more overall as a package as a player. And he's the kind of person you want around when you're trying to rebuild a squad and get the club moving forward correctly with the rebuild. Why would you want to show him out? You know, even if you have to end up rotating him with somebody else, that's fine too. Like, you know, so.
No, that's fair enough. No, I oh God, that beer went down the wrong way. In terms of
children,
children. No, in terms of like, the thing is with Bellerin is that I look at Cedric, and I know that Arsenal fans are very reactive, and they see a right back score on his debut and suddenly think this guy is the answer to everything that we've been worrying about. The issue there is obviously that we haven't seen enough of him. But I've kind of liked what Ainsley Maitland-Niles has done. And I feel like Cedric and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, if we were to invest in another centre-back who was like established, top class, to back up Saliba, having one of those two at right back wouldn't really concern me because I feel like the centre-back area would be good. I feel like Cedric would be solid, and I feel like Ainsley Maitland-Niles is a really good backup. And I feel like Bellerin at this stage, I can't see him getting any better. I can't see Bellerin improving more than he's at. And I don't know if that's unfair. I just haven't seen much development from him in the last, say, 2 years or so. And I'm starting to see a stagnation in the guy's play. And this is nothing to do with, like, personally outside of football, the controversy that some fans take issue with. It's nothing to do with that. It's purely of what I'm seeing on the pitch. And I just feel as if he is an asset that Arsenal have, and we have very few of these, that could command a decent fee in the window. And I don't believe that we will see investment from up high. I don't believe that we have a lot of money to spend this summer. And so if we were able to move him on, I feel that we have enough backup to be able to work that finance into an area that needs more work, or even invest in a better right back, like say a Castagna or Atalanta or something like that. So that's just where my head's at. Is that fine? Is that grounded, Drew, or is that wildly?
No, it's not fine.
It's not.
Why do you hate Bellerin, Tom?
I don't hate Bellerin.
Why do you hate vegans, Tom? Why do you hate trees, Tom?
He's planting trees even when we don't win at this rate, so it's fine. All is well. Adam.
Yes.
Christopher Fung says, any chance Partey is a smokescreen and we actually bring in younger, cheap talent like a Dennis Geiger, Arnie Mayer, Ibrahim Sangara, etc.? I mean, tell me your in-depth knowledge of those three players that Christopher Fung has just mentioned.
Dennis Geiger, I know. Arnie Mayer, I know. I haven't heard of Ibrahim Sangare, so, forgive me. But I haven't seen them play as much as I have of Thomas Partey, so I guess better the devil you know. And because I've seen Partey put in big performances in high pressure games in the Europa League, in the Champions League, in La Liga, and play well, it doesn't make sense. If he wants to come to Arsenal and there's an avenue or a channel for that to happen, then I'm sorry, I'm going for Partey because he's more experienced. And that is what we need at this moment in time. Perhaps, if he needs someone to deputize for him, then we can go for one of these players. But right now, no, get Partey in.
It's funny you say Dennis Geiger and Arnie Mayer because they're the players I don't know, but Ibrahim Sangara I do know. So we've got a good balance going on there.
Yeah.
Do you want me to tell you about Geiger and Mayer or no?
1 second and I'll let you. TG Shifts sent in a super chat, said 4-0 clean sheet, big up Adam and Tom. We have to say that that's not a slight on you two. TG Shifts broke me and Adam over at the Football Terrace. Yeah. That's the only reason. He doesn't hate you, I promise. It's not what it is.
He really likes orange cards as well. That's what I heard.
He does. He loves orange. So, Drew, talk to me about these two that I've not come in contact with them.
So Geiger is at Hoffenheim and Mayer is at Hertha Berlin. So they're not Thomas Partey. They're just not the same player. They're both deeper, creative. They have more similarities with a Granit Xhaka. They're more deeper, creative players. They're not. Yeah, they're not going to be like for all the talk about Partey being like this. I think people have this really weird, incorrect assumption of who Thomas Partey is as a player, and I think that's why everyone should listen to your interview with Graham Hunter about Partey, honestly, because he's not just that sit and shield kind of DM where he wins the ball and just plays it off. He's way much more than that. He's confident on the ball. He can ping a good pass. He can drive play if he needs to. I mean, but Geiger and Mayer are good. They're going to sit a little bit deeper and try to pull some strings, almost similar to how Max Meyer was at Schalke his last season. Similar mold in that kind of role. So that's not what we really need. That's not going to push us forward in the midfield balance. Like, they're not bad players. They're good young players. They have potential, but that's not going to fix the balance problem. If anything, we need less of that. We need more of maybe what a Partey could bring, or that ilk. That's just my personal take on what we need. But those types of players are getting them in would just be another overload, because I think it's clear that Xhaka is playing a key role moving forward for Arteta. That you can't really now deny that he's vital to how we operate on the pitch. So it doesn't, and then you could even then argue that Ceballos can do some similar things with him there. So yeah, I think we need to focus on really getting that more well-rounded, combative type player than another creative player. That's why people are saying, "Oh, I'd love to get Thiago at the club." Why? Like, yeah, brilliant footballer, but that's not going to solve the actual issues we have. So you just got to find the balance.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's probably a nice place to sort of finish things, especially talking about Partey. If you, as Drew said, if you want to learn more, and it's fair to say I was schooled, and you'll enjoy watching me get schooled by Graham Hunter positionally, because I was sitting there on the pod going, yeah, we play with these two number 8s in the middle, and he was like, well, hold on, what do you mean number 8s? If pivots aren't number 8s, and that's what I love about Graham, is that he's not scared to completely ruin me during an interview, which is great because it means I learned something and you guys learned something. So I've learned loads about numbers and positioning today, and learning that Thomas Partey is looked upon like sort of a 6'8" type of player, more so an 8. And an 8's a much more attacking position than I ever imagined it was before. So I've learned loads of things today from that interview. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description below, but you should be able to find it absolutely no problem on the channel. So please do go and check that out. Last thing for me to say is to thank my absolutely brilliant guests and get their predictions for the North London Derby. First of all, Drew, thank you. I know you've told us we think we're going to win 2-0, which is great. Much appreciate your time though, fella.
Always happy to be on, bud.
Good stuff. Adam, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, but give me your prediction.
2-1, Arsenal.
Good stuff. Tell people where you can find you and what you're up to.
Yeah, you can find me on The Fifth Official on YouTube and at TFO Show on Twitter. So give us a follow and a subscribe, please.
Brilliant stuff. Ellis, same stuff.
Yeah, I agree with Adam. 2-1 for me. Kane's probably going to score a penalty, isn't after we give it away. Like he's going to get a penalty. So 2-1 for me. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter as well at Ellis Mel, and also appear occasionally on the Burkamp podcast every now and again on the radio show.
Burkamp Wonderlands. We've had a double Burkamp Wonderland guests back to back. We've had Danny and now Ellis. So who knows? Maybe Josh will be on next week. Who knows? Fingers crossed we'll get something sorted out, I'm sure. As I always say with the prediction stuff, I would love for you to throw them in the chat box so I can read what you guys are saying. But my computer is so old, I'm going to do it on my phone. It's much easier, but apologies, it won't come up on the screen. Christopher Fung is saying it's going to be 2-1 to the Arsenal, which is fantastic. I love this one from Arian. He reckons it's going to be 10-0 with a Coquelin hat-trick, which I don't think is possible. But, you know, stranger things have happened, so maybe we can expect a 10-0 with a Coquelin hat-trick. TD Schiss also said 4-0, like he said, with his super chat. Avon Teddington, says 2-0 AFC. We have 11 men on the pitch this time. Rydog reckons we're going to win 3-1. Vinny the Eagle won. I keep saying Vinny the Eagle like it's the Eddie the Eagle film, but I keep doing that and I need to stop. Vinny Eagle says 3-1 to the Arsenal. Owen Young, fantastic writer. Go check out some of his stuff. Says 3-2 to the Arsenal. Cedric hat-trick, fantastic. Tebow Pesk reckons it's going to be 1-1. He's a bit more grounded, is Tebow. And I think that's pretty much it in terms of predictions. So some mixed stuff. Like the positivity, I, as always, are going to go for the TGT special of a 1-0 Cedric to score. It will happen one day. It will. just bear with me. It will eventually happen. Fantastic stuff from the guys. Make sure you go check them out on Twitter. You'll find all of their handles in the description below. And, of course, you can go check them out on all of the stuff they do besides TGT and their own things as well. Me and Drew will be back on Monday for the Tactical Breakdown podcast with Kieran Quayle, who is the editor-in-chief of Get Spanish Football News, to talk more about Partey, Unai Nunez, and some other links to Spanish footballers. I'll also be doing an interview on Friday with Arsblog, so make sure you go and check that one out. We talked to Andrew all about the North London Derby and the like. And also on Friday is our members podcast. So I'll be joined by 3 expert members to talk about loads of stuff regarding the Arsenal, their loving of the club as well, and lots more. Preview show on Saturday, reactions on Sunday. And at that point, my missus will kill me for doing too many podcasts. So there you go. It's been a real pleasure speaking to all of you. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.